Hello. So I have been hearing a lot of people call themselves conflict avoidant recently, and I wanted to address this term because I actually think it's a pretty bad, horrible euphemism for a very pathological condition, which is a permanent freeze. It's like a trauma response that is freeze. And if you hear the term conflict avoidant, don't you think that it sounds as if someone has a preference, like they prefer to not deal with conflict? But it's like a preference, almost like a food preference or something like that. But like if conflict were to occur and they had to deal with it, maybe they would have the ability to. That's what it sounds like to me. These people have no ability to deal with conflict. In fact, they change and manipulate situations by lying and staying like stuck, almost like they're in a tomb or they are hiding in the freezer. Like there's a profound inability to defend their boundaries because the shame is so great. So very unconsciously, there's this feeling that my boundaries don't matter, my feelings don't matter, my experience actually, truly, objectively does not matter, or my feelings don't matter, in which case, if I tried to defend my boundaries, I'd be lying. If I tried to defend my boundaries, I'd be like violating the other person. Actually, I'd be bad somehow. It's somehow like evil to defend your boundaries. So if you think of yourself as conflict avoidant, there's a very profound and insidious unconscious belief that you literally could not defend your boundaries, even if you tried. It's like you go into battle and for sure you're going to lose. And in this case, the feeling in the body is that you're going to be killed. So consciously, you know you will not be killed, but unconsciously, your body feels as if it will be killed. So why would you engage in conflict if the outcome is guaranteed you will be killed? This is what these people feel, in my opinion. And the problem with this is they allow the violation to occur for a very long time and they never say anything. Or if they say something, they say it way too late. And what's interesting about this is by not speaking up about your boundaries, like the moment of violation, you're then starting to violate yourself. You're participating in your own violation. And the dynamic shifts from that person being your violator, whether on purpose or not, whether they're aware of it or not, they are your violator and you are the violated at the moment of surprise, the moment the first time this happens, whatever this is. But if you don't say something in that moment, every moment after that, you are kind of agreeing to the violation. You're agreeing to the dynamic at the very least by not saying or doing anything to shift it. And so if you're this kind of person and you allow something to happen for like 3 months straight before you speak up about it, for 3 months, you're implicitly agreeing to the situation and the other person thinks you're okay with it. So when you finally speak up about it, it's going to be really, really hard because they're going to feel violated by you. They're going to see you as the violator because you're acting as if something that was okay yesterday is suddenly not okay today. And that will make the other person feel icky. So for example, if for some reason I put one cherry on the table and you take it and eat it, and I don't say or do anything, so then I put another cherry on the table and you take it and eat it. And we just do this for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, I suddenly say, hey, you're stealing from me. You're violating my boundaries. Stop eating these cherries. How are you going to feel? Are you going to be like, oh, I'm so happy you told me what your boundaries are. Now we're safer with each other. No, you're going to feel upset. You're going to feel like you are violated by me in my even saying that, right? And that makes sense because we had, without explicitly talking about it, come into some sort of dynamic and like an agreement through continued participation in the dynamic that I'm okay with you eating these cherries. I'm okay with you taking my energy. And in fact, I keep feeding you cherries, essentially, right? And then to claim 3 months later that you've been stealing from me this whole time, that makes you feel icky because you thought you had consent with me. And the whole time I was lying. And then suddenly I put it on upon you that you're the stealer, that feels really, really bad because the trust is broken in many ways. Like you trusted me and I broke the trust by even telling you my boundaries. And I told you my boundaries like way too late, I was at a restaurant recently with a man. And in these parts, it is quite normal for someone to literally walk into the restaurant and ask for money. So someone walks into the restaurant, comes to our table, asks for money. And the man did this. And I'm kind of like, are you gathering up energy to say something? Like, what's going on over here? And it took me a long time to realize this is his response. His response is nothing. And the longer he did that, the more uncomfortable I was because, you don't have to agree with me, but when there's masculine and a feminine, the masculine is the one who defends. The masculine is the one who interacts with the outside world. That masculine is the one that protects the boundaries of the feminine. So in this case, it was in quotation marks, his role to say something. Could I have said something? Yeah. But given that situation, and also my understanding, our mutual values, it was his role to say something. Eventually, the owner of the restaurant comes by, kind of takes up some space, doesn't even have to say anything verbal to the man, and the man leaves, understanding that he's not welcome and no money will be given to him today. So I asked this man who did nothing, why did you do that? Why did you do this? And he was very insistent that was the appropriate response because he wasn't going to give that guy anything. He wasn't going to give him attention. He wasn't going to give him anything. That was appropriate. His response was no response. And that is not a response. That is a freeze response. It's not a choice. He didn't make a choice. And he thought that was a choice. He thought that was like an empowered choice because he was confused. That's not an empowered choice because he took literally no action. And in my opinion, the choice needs to include action because in this case, you're defending your boundaries. So in the case where there's conflict, and in this restaurant situation, there was conflict, right? When there's conflict, you have to take action. Taking no action is not a choice. And I've been asked this before by somebody, can't you make the active choice to do nothing? No. An active choice literally means to be masculine and to literally do something. To do nothing is to remain passive and feminine. And in doing that, you're basically implicitly agreeing to the violation and allowing the violation to occur. This is not a place of empowerment. This is not a choice. It shows me that you're so unhealed that you're scared to say or do something. And so that was the case of this man. He was too scared to say or do something. Do you know why? I'll tell you. Because he felt so much shame about how he felt. And he implicitly felt that the other person had more power than him in the hierarchy, that this other person's experience was more important than his, that he wasn't allowed to speak up. This is what he felt in his shadow. This is what he unconsciously felt. So in his ego, he's like, I'm going to make the strong conscious choice to do nothing. But that's not the case. Really, what was going on was he was too scared to say, please, not today, please leave the table, or just like get up and take space like the owner did. He was afraid to do that because he literally thought he would die if he were to do that. Like, not only is it wrong to do that, like somehow morally wrong to do that, but he would lose the conflict and die. So he was too scared to do that. I made a drawing, so I'll share it. This is a very reduced wheel of consent as I teach it. So at the moment of violation, someone actively does something to you. It goes against your boundaries and you are a victim. That only happens for like a split second. It happens like at the moment of surprise. It happens the very first time this person does whatever it is. And depending on the vibration of the person, they either did it on purpose because they like hurting you, or they did it by accident because they had no idea it was hurting you. In either case, it's on you to defend your boundaries. And how you do that is, this is the medicine of the wheel. you go to the opposite in consent vibration. So in this case, you have to have integrity. So in having integrity with yourself, you go, hey, could you please stop doing that? Could you please stop eating that cherry I put on the table? That's not for you. Then you're having integrity with yourself, and you're also having integrity with the other person. You're telling them your experience and you're notifying them that what they're doing is outside of consent. So if this person has a higher vibration, they're going to say, oh, sorry, I didn't realize. Thank you for telling me. I won't eat any more of your cherries. If they have a lower vibration, they're going to say, so, but it doesn't matter because you have to have integrity with yourself. It's not dependent upon the other person's reaction to you. You're having integrity is your relationship to yourself, first and foremost. So if you want to get out of the victim position, you have to have integrity and defend your boundaries. So when you say nothing and you're conflict avoidant, meaning you're afraid you're going to die if you defend your own boundaries. If you're conflict avoidant, you feel as if your boundaries don't matter in a very fundamental way. So not only are they not worth defending, it's as if you're hurting this person by even stating the fact that you have boundaries. It's a very confused, unhealed state. So if you want to stop being the victim, you have to value your experience. But if you don't, and you're in quotation marks conflict avoidant, what you end up doing every single moment after the initial surprise is you slide over here and you really change the dynamic. You start to pretend being the victim. This is a parasite position. So you're actually being parasitical in this situation, and this person is serving you in the form of being some kind of like puppet. Like at this point, because you didn't defend your boundaries, because you're agreeing to the violation, this person will continue violating you, whether they realize it or not, whether that's within their boundaries or not. If you have a high vibrational person you're interacting with, they don't want to be violating you. They want to be told if it's against your boundaries, So whether they realize it or not, they're your puppet, and they're going to continue violating you. But as unbeknownst to them, they're in the dark, And so when you finally say, this is against my boundaries, they're going to feel like you're a victim because probably it goes against their boundaries to be actively violating you. They're going to realize you were lying the whole time. For the last 3 months, you've been eating my cherries and I was lying and acting as if I was okay with it, So you kind of create the reality that you think is true in your unconscious. In your unconscious, you feel bad for even having boundaries. So you feel reluctant to say anything about them. You feel as if you're a violator by even having boundaries. And by waiting for so long to finally say something, you become the violator. Does that make sense? You become the violator. Because to stop being the victim, you say nothing. Like I said, that's not true. But in your case, you say nothing. Then you start lying, right? Then in many cases, that person becomes your victim. Or like I said, this is a bit complicated, but they become your puppet. And they serve you by continuing to violate you, sometimes against their own will. So that's what I wanted to say about people who think they're conflict avoidant. You're not conflict avoidant. You are in a freeze state. It is a trauma response, and it is not a choice. There is no such thing as an active choice to do nothing. If you care about yourself, it's very easy to defend your boundaries. If you care about the other person, it's very easy to defend your boundaries because most likely the other person doesn't want to be made into evil. And by lying and not saying anything and agreeing to the dynamic, you're making the other person into evil, whether or not that's their choice. So you're taking choice away from them by not exercising your own choice to say or do something in the moment. Okay, that is the lesson for today. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.